Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the tools, advice, and strategy you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now, on to this week's show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast, or the podcast, if you will. This is episode number 2, and today we're going to be talking about selling on different channels, leveraging print on demand using various channels, sales channels. And as always, with me is Travis Ross. Travis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to get this second episode in the can and kind of touch on the various platforms that people can use for print on demand. But before we do that, I think we're going to throw it to a segment that is going to be a recurring segment here on the show. This is the first time it's been aired, but we like to call it Point of Interest. Each week, we're going to try and bring you a point of interest about the print-on-demand industry, something that we find interesting. So, Travis, tell us, what is the first ever point of interest?
Yeah, well, point of interest is kind of a fancy way of saying we Googled something cool about the print-on-demand industry.
No, what are you talking about? This is from the deep reservoir of knowledge that we've acquired. What is Google? Yeah, what is this Google machine?
Yeah, because I happen to know revenue numbers for Printful for 2019. That actually is our point of interest, though.
Yeah, spoiler alert. There you go.
Yeah, Printful reached $116 million of revenue in 2019, up from $77 million in 2018. That's a 49% increase, and I just did that math off the top of my head.
that came from the reservoir of knowledge. We did not prep that percentage at all. It's not in the show notes. He just totally.
It's just crazy, though.
What do you think? What do you think attributes to that? I mean, what do you think is the main factor? Is it expansion on product offerings for their customers? Why don't you tell people kind of what Printful is if they're listening and like, I don't know what the hell what a Printful is. Explain that, and then kind of go into your thoughts on why the 49% increase.
Yeah, so Printful is a print-on-demand supplier. So if you have a brand and you have different products, maybe you have T-shirts, hoodies, maybe you do posters. I mean, they have a lot of different product offerings. You can have Printful fulfill your print-on-demand products to your end users or your end customers. Right. That's their main business model. And so one of the things that they've done is they've really, really expanded their product selection. I think I read they've added in 2019 they added 50 new products or over 50 new products. They have a production facility in the U.S. They added like 57,000 square feet to their production facility. They have a facility in Latvia, which they do all of the European fulfillment over there. And they just, in 2019, I believe they opened a new print facility in Spain. So, I mean, obviously they're making some money because they're expanding like crazy. Yeah. But I think the reason they're really expanding like crazy is because print on demand is really still in its infancy. I don't think we've seen all the things that we're going to be able to do. A lot of people are coming into print on demand because it really is one of the fastest ways to build to build wealth, to have an online business, to build a brand, to sell on channels like we're going to be talking about. I really think like people are just kind of figuring this out, and they're coming into print on demand in droves, but it's still young. I can't imagine what Printful's going to do in 2020, even with COVID.
Yeah. And, I think the technology as far as like direct to garment printing, which is one of the things that, one of the technologies that definitely lends itself to print on demand as opposed to screen printing. I think the DTG technology in and of itself is probably less than 10 years old. Probably. I mean, we're just getting to printers now that can print white ink and color, and now they're doing polys. So the printers that I've seen that have come online, the printers that are coming down the pipe from these suppliers, soon will be able to rival the productivity and almost rival the cost of screen printing because of how much this technology is improving and expanding. And so you're right that it is in its infancy, and although there seems to be a lot of people being attracted to it, now it's still relatively ground floor. If you get in now and kind of get in while this thing's starting to explode before it gets, super saturated, like everything does, of course, because once everyone wants to find a way to make money, obviously. But I agree. I think it's a good time to get in, and I think it's very much in its infancy still as a industry overall.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think and the other thing to say is just the Printful's like just one of hundreds, if not thousands, of print-on-demand suppliers.
Yep.
And so it'd be really interesting if anybody has like an actual like 2019 number for print-on-demand as an industry overall, like what type of market share it took. Even in just the U.S., we'd love for you to give us an email. Just shoot us an email to info@printondemandcast.com and just update us because, the Google machine can only work so well. But if we work together, we can defeat the Google machine. No. We don't want to say that out loud.
No,
it'll come for us.
Then they'll censor this podcast episode. That'll just be like 3 minutes of just quiet space that no one will have intended. So no, we love you, Google, and you, Mark Zuckerberg. You're our best friends. Okay, yes. So that is this week's point of interest, and so with that, we're going to transition into the main event. Main event. It's the main event. The main topic why we're here, and that is sales channels. So, Travis, tell the people, and then I'll follow you. How'd you get started selling print on demand? Where did you start selling print on demand, and what did you start selling?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this in the last episode, so we're not going to really go into it a ton. But I started selling online and I was just selling anything I could get my hands on. Really, I literally overheard a conversation at a conference about print on demand, about sublimation, actually, and realized that the barrier to entry, or like to actually do it yourself, it was pretty inexpensive. And so I jumped on because I already had been doing what's called private label on Amazon. Yeah. And what private label is basically finding a product that you can stick your own brand name label, your private label onto, and then sell it on that channel. Which so there's some skills that come along with private labeling. You have to be able to create your own listing. And so I was already doing that. I was already creating listings. And so with print on demand, with sublimation, with coffee mugs in particular, it was kind of like a poor man's private label, if you will, because I was creating my own listing. I was the only one that had access to that design. And so that kind of got me started. What about you?
As we touched on in the first episode, our paths are very similar in a lot of ways in this print-on-demand journey. But you actually had told us, "Hey, I'm doing mugs. I'm sublimating mugs," and we were doing a lot of wholesale, which on Amazon, which is basically for those listening. This is a bad example, but you go to like an Adidas brand, and say, hey, we want to sell your stuff on Amazon. Can we have an official wholesale account, blah, blah, blah. And it's a bad example because that would never happen with that particular brand. But we were doing a lot of that, a lot of RA, and we were also doing some private label. But you're right in the respect to it was like poor man's private label because it was a way you could control the buy box. You could control the margins a lot better than if you're on a listing with 15 other people. And you're the only one with that specific design. Might be something similar, but yours is the only one specific. So that's where we started too, with those mug presses, and printing a bunch and shipping them into FBA, and then doing merchant fulfilled stuff. So that's how we got started in print on demand as well. And very similar beginnings.
So we just wanted to kind of go through some of the online channels,
right?
That if you are interested in beginning your sublimation journey or your DTG journey or just your print on demand journey, maybe where are some of the places that you could sell? And some of these are going to be like, oh yeah, but there might be a couple that you'll learn a little something. So we decided to kind of give you an example of or compare these channels in a little bit of a unique way. So we're going to start off with eBay. eBay is, we're going to call it the garage sale channel. And the reason we call it the garage sale channel is because really anything goes. I mean, you can sell your 1974, knick-knack, a little figurine or something for $200, or you can sell a pair of used Adidas, or you can sell a pair of new Adidas.
Right.
At least I think you can. I don't know. They might shut you down now. But my point is, new and used, anything goes on eBay. It's kind of like a garage sale.
You can literally even make an offer instead of buying it right then and there. You can haggle price.
You can haggle,
the most garage sale
negotiate.
feature that it has.
Yeah. So Josiah, have you had much experience with eBay? Have you with print on demand specifically, or have you guys listed anything or tried?
Not with print on demand specifically. When we were doing a lot of wholesale or that kind of stuff, RA, we would use eBay as a liquidation platform, or it's like, okay, we have this, or somewhere to kind of get rid of returned inventory. Someone returns a pair of shoes and we can't resell them on Amazon because of the rules, so we just throw them on eBay. But print on demand wise, I can't remember. I was having a conversation with someone, and they were like, "Why don't you sell on eBay? Do print on demand?" And I don't know. It never occurred to me because to me that doesn't seem like a channel where people will go to look for novelty T-shirts or mugs with sayings on them or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not to say, it's not to discredit it and say that it wouldn't work, but it certainly hasn't been our first choice, and we have yet to do anything. Have you ventured into eBay print on demand wise at all?
Yeah, I did start. I did list a bunch of products, bunch of mugs on eBay, and I found that it wasn't a very good channel for me, at least for mugs with print on demand. And the more I thought about it, so I actually do not. First of all, they charge you for every listing. So, the more listings you have, the more you're paying in just listing fees.
Right.
So the idea that I wanted to accomplish was to have a whole lot of listings, but then that cost me a lot. And so if they didn't sell as well, it was it didn't really work out.
Yeah.
But the reason I feel that eBay is not the best channel for print on demand is because it's like, who goes to a garage sale to buy their friend a gift?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
totally.
if you're going to eBay, you have more of a garage sale mentality. And if you have a garage sale mentality, you're probably not looking for a gift. You're looking for something unique, something something for yourself. Maybe you're looking for a part, for a car or a washing machine that you're fixing, or something specific that you're probably not going to find on Amazon or Walmart or any of these other places. So that's kind of my experience with eBay.
Yeah, it reminds me.
So what's our?
It reminds me of when I used to work at Radio Shack. People don't like come to Radio Shack for fuses and weird tail light lamps and stuff like. It's very niche. But So there's eBay, and then we have Etsy, which we have compared to, or are comparing it to, a vintage shop. Etsy is very a lot of handmade stuff, a lot of fine art, craft, engraving and personalized items. Great for gifts. Great for
Great for gifts.
Huge in the home decor and the wedding scene. That whole industry. I mean, Etsy is the place to go for unique artwork, commissioned artwork. I mean, it's got a lot of that. It's kind of like art. I don't know if this is the right word, bazaar. Like the crafts fairs or whatever. You'd walk into this huge, gymnasium or auditorium, and there's just booth after booth of handmade stuff, and we can So it's like that. And my wife has an Etsy shop, and she kills it on Etsy, and it's specifically a lot of home decor, pillows, tea towels, mugs, some shirts. Not a whole lot of shirts move on Etsy, at least in her shop. Some more of the wood signs, with the cute, funny sayings and all that kind of stuff that move really, really well. So that is certainly, especially if you have the ability to do customized orders, I think Etsy is like the go-to for, I want something and I want it customized, I want it unique, I want it to be one of a kind. Etsy is usually where people go to find that kind of stuff, and it's kind of carved out that niche for itself amongst all these other platforms.
Yeah, that's not to say you can't do custom on these other channels, and there are people that are successful in doing it on some of these other channels. But Etsy, I agree. I think it's for customized, products. Which the cool thing about print on demand is that it really lends itself to customizing things. Because it's a print file. Yep. I can change some names or some words on a print file, and immediately I have a brand new product, something that's unique to that particular customer. So, Etsy has been the one thing I will say about Etsy. I think it's probably of all the marketplaces that we're going to talk about today, it's the one that you really need to hone in your product listings. You really need to kind of nail your product pictures, your storefront, your text on your, you can't just throw a picture with a white background and then, have your buy it now button. Yeah. That's not enough for these Etsy buyers.
It's kind of the 180 from Amazon, which we'll get to. Amazon, you have to have just a white background with the product, and then you can have some other lifestyle images. But like you said, if you do that on Etsy, you're not going to get a lot of views, because Etsy, the people with good shops, everything you see is carefully curated from the product listings, the branding throughout the entire thing. I mean, it's very, very specific. So you do have to really up your game and present an entire brand as opposed to separate listings that aren't necessarily cohesive with one another. So you do have to kind of think of it from like a brand representation standpoint with Etsy for sure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So that's Etsy, great channel.
They do
I think
charge
a lot
you per
of
listing
people,
too, but I think it's less than eBay.
Right. I think it's 20 cents per listing, actually.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that is interesting with Etsy is that they only charge you a 5% commission when something sells. Now, they do also charge you 20 cents again to relist that product, but 5% plus 20 cents is a lot better than some of these other channels that charge, typically 15% in the categories that we're selling in.
Yep.
Well, anything else about Etsy, or you want to move on to the next one?
No, tell us what's next. What's the next platform?
So the next one that we're going to talk about is Walmart. And Walmart, you could say that it's kind of like the Walmart of print-on-demand stores, or perhaps like a store in the mall, like a Dillard's or a JCPenney, kind of a store that has pretty much everything, but it's still kind of, it's inside of it. But it's like a Walmart. It's like it has pretty much everything, but it's kind of, it's discounted. Like Walmart, one of Walmart's things is that if they find you advertising the same product on another channel for less, they will take your listing down. That's part of their thing. They actually crawl other marketplaces to find your exact list.
I'm learning something new.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. It's kind of.
So do they just
kind of
take?
a little
Do they just take
creepy.
it down until you change the price? Either
That
way,
I don't know.
or-
I do know they take it down, and I'm unsure if you can, kind of resurrect the listing, or if it's just kind of too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
Do it again enough, and we're just going to, totally
Shut down
take you
your
off the
entire account.
platform.
Right,
Yeah. The other thing about Walmart is they are much more. They're much more stringent on their product categories. Like you can't have any cuss words in your listing titles or on your products. You can't say anything that they would deem inappropriate. They have a very strict code of standards, if you will, for their products. So nothing as it relates to like mental illness or anything like that. Right. So there was a mug or something that said something about it had the word schizophrenia on it in a joking manner, and that was not okay on Walmart. Now Amazon, you could typically do something like that.
Right.
Etsy also, it's very loose with their
Etsy's pretty
content
close.
Policy.
Yeah, Etsy's. That's what I was meant to touch on. Is Etsy's very kind of Wild West with that stuff at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have people that even Madeline, my wife, she sells, a Central Perk mug with the Central Perk logo, and people can customize and put any name underneath in the Friends font. And Etsy doesn't care. If you put that on Amazon, you don't stand a chance, or Walmart. So Etsy is very, very loose with those, like you said, those content guidelines at the moment, at least.
Yeah. So Walmart is a little more strict with that. The other thing I'll say is that getting approved in Walmart can be challenging.
Yeah, it's a process.
They don't necessarily just let anyone in. You kind of have to go through their process and jump through their hoops and or know somebody on the inside that can open a few doors for you.
Right.
But once you're in, there are no listing fees. At least I'm not sure if they're high volume listing fees, but like there are on Amazon, but I've not reached those yet. And I have I think I have, last I counted, I have like 15,000 products on Walmart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it has been a interesting thing to see how Walmart has done specifically during COVID. Prior to COVID, I would say, and even into like last Q4, I would say Walmart accounted for probably 10 to 15% of my sales.
Right.
And I would say at this point right now, Walmart is probably accounting for about 40% of my sales.
Yeah.
Which is shocking, a shocking increase in I guess traffic for Walmart. So I think they are now officially the number 2 e-commerce website online.
I saw that as well, which is saying it's a huge testament to what they've done, because they're not that old. I mean, they launched in 2017, I want to say, maybe 2 years ago, something like that.
Right.
And it was very rudimentary, because I think we were both some of the first people on the platform, and listing was interesting, and it was very.
Now, we're not saying that Walmart.com launched in 2017. We're saying Walmart.com opened the doors for third-party sellers.
Correct. Yes.
To be able to come onto the platform.
Yeah. Good distinction for sure. So in the beginning, it was like, man, is this worth? It's very arduous. Is this worth it? But I can attest and agree with you. Similarly, that Walmart is started to creep up on our Amazon volume for print on demand, for mugs, for T-shirts, for all of that stuff. We've seen a huge percentage in growth from that channel specifically during COVID. So it's interesting that you guys are seeing the same thing for sure.
Yeah. So that's Walmart.
Yes.
Josiah, what's our next print on demand?
Yes, after Walmart, we have Merch by Amazon. And in keeping in the spirit of a mall analogy, Merch by Amazon is one of those kiosks in the middle of the mall that you always walk by. They do a few things very, very well, but they're not big enough to be an entire store at the moment. Merch by Amazon is actually where we got our start selling shirts on Amazon.
Right.
I think we got in pretty early in the program. You have to request to be invited and allowed in. So it's interesting. The whole premise is if you have designs, you can upload them through Merch by Amazon, select the colors, and the titles, and then Amazon lists it for you with the Prime badge next to it, which does great things for your volume. The detriments that I found were that you don't make a ton of money doing it that way, which I guess is with the direction we ended up going, trying to do affiliates and partners. Like after we made our, $7 a t-shirt, it wasn't very enticing to go to someone else and say, do you want 250 of this? There's not a whole lot of pie to go around when you're trying to fulfill it. And when it's specifically only that you can post or list on Amazon, and their content guidelines are very stringent.
Very stringent.
Very, very stringent. So that's kind of the pros and cons for us, but it's a really cool program. Travis, are you still moving stuff through that channel at the moment?
Yeah. I actually, I have two Merch by Amazon accounts. I was able to separate them and, make sure that they were all, compliant with their terms of service and everything. And so I have not loaded like actual designs onto those platforms in quite a while. I have so Amazon or Merch by Amazon does what's called a tier system. So when you come on the platform, at least when I came on the platform, you started at 10 and you could only list 10 products. And then once you sold 10, you would be qualified to then go up to the next tier, which was 25. Right. And then once you sold 25 products, you could go, I don't know if they skipped 50 and went to 100, but it was like 100, then it was 500, then it was 1,000, 2,000, 6,000, 12,000, and it kept going up and up and up. My two accounts, one is at tier 2,000 and one is at tier 1,000, but I probably only have a total of 450 to 500 designs, because what they do, if you upload a design and it doesn't sell, I believe, and I am outdated on my Merch by Amazon stats because I haven't been in that much lately, but I think it's after six months they will take, or it's after a certain period of time. If it hasn't had a sale, they'll take that down. Now you can relist that same shirt or that same product. But they'll take it down. And so over time, a lot of my products that I had, or a lot of my designs that I had uploaded kind of came back down. And so I've landed right around the 450, 500 mark. But, I make a few $100s every month and I haven't touched it in 6 months to a year, so I'll take that every day. Yeah. The other thing I will say, one of the reasons we called it the kiosk is because they just don't do very many things. Right. They do T-shirts, hoodies, premium shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, and pop sockets at the time of recording. That's it. Right. They don't do coffee mugs. They don't, and part of the reason they don't do some of those other products is because they're huge. Like Merch by Amazon needs to have massive facilities to hold their stock because they're fulfilling so many orders every single day, and so. Obviously, the latest product that they added was pop sockets, and pop sockets are really small. Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe they've added something recently, more recent than that. But I that was the last one I'm aware of. And but pop sockets are small. Yeah. Mugs are way bigger. Yep. So it would take a lot more space for them.
We've seen the mug dryer that you used to have, and it took up a lot of real estate. I imagine that Amazon would have to invest in some pretty serious production equipment to get into the sublimation game, which like you said would require a massive expansion in square footage, because the mugs might be just this big, but the equipment to get it all done proficiently and at that volume is massive.
Well, just can you imagine if all of a sudden they start? Just the sheer number of square footage they would need, pallet upon pallet upon pallet of blank mugs.
Blank mugs. Yeah.
And so it's just a lot. So that's Merch by Amazon.
Yep. And would you throw in Teespring, TeePublic, Redbubble, Spreadshirt?
Totally.
Those kinds of companies, platforms are the same kind of vibe as a Merch by Amazon. They might do a little bit more
Right.
in product offering or whatever. But would you say that they're in the same vein?
I totally agree. They're in the same vein. I think what separates Merch by Amazon is the number of eyeballs
Yep.
that they potentially have. While a Teespring and a Redbubble and these other companies might have more potential products, as far as like they probably do. You can do a mug, or you can do a sticker, or a poster, or different things like that. They don't have purses for sale by Louis Vuitton and Adidas running shoes and all of these other things that bring eyeballs to the Amazon.com website.
Right.
And Merch by Amazon, I really feel like benefits from having all of those buyers on one platform.
Yeah.
Not to say it's not incredibly competitive. When we first started, both me and you, we were doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, I think there's been a lot of people that have come onto the Merch by Amazon platform, and it's really kind of diluted the sales, I think.
Yep.
So that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, I would totally put all those other companies in. I mean, they basically do the same thing. They just have their own platforms that they're selling their own products on, or they're selling our products or our designs on their platforms.
On their
and the other thing I would say is a difference in Walmart, Etsy, and eBay to and Amazon.com to Merch by Amazon, and I believe Redbubble and all these others, is that they actually pay you a royalty. It's not. It's really their sale, and they're giving you a royalty to use your art on their products.
Okay.
Whereas in Walmart, Etsy, eBay, Amazon.com, it's your product. So you are actually, it's your product. So when you sell it, you're selling that product. It's not a royalty. It's an actual, cost of goods. You have real cost of goods, the whole deal.
Yep.
So that's an interesting distinction between the two methods of selling.
That's, I guess, and that's a distinction that prior to you bringing it up, I guess I never really thought of it in that way, which would explain why you don't make as much if you're just getting a royalty on your design, basically. But because of
it's a licensing thing,
and because of the number of eyeballs that it brings to the platform, that's also, I think, how they can kind of justify taking the lion's share, because it's like our product, and we're bringing you 15 million eyeballs, every however long. So, that's an interesting distinction.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the last one we're going to talk about today, the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah, the Amazon.com, which is the entire mall.
Quite literally.
Walmart might be a store in the mall. Merch by Amazon is the kiosk in the middle of the aisle, but Amazon is the entire mall. It's got everything you'd need at the prices you want, and they're in 2 days for the most part. Man, Amazon, that's where we sell a lot of our print-on-demand stuff since we've moved out of RA and wholesale and private label, with the exception of, our shirts are essentially our own private label because we have a GTIN exemption. It's our brand. It's, we don't use UPCs, whatever. So it's kind of like, again, poor man's private label. But we sell quite a bit. Mugs especially move really well on Amazon. But it's done really well for us. And during COVID, because they shut down Merch by Amazon, there were no Prime shirt listings. The only shirt listings left were people like us who were printing and fulfilling the shirts ourselves. We saw a massive spike in volume and in numbers. I mean, like 60 to 70 shirts a day, because we were the only game in town printing shirts and shipping them ourselves. So that was a crazy experience. But yeah, Amazon is where I have the lion's share of my experience selling on. And I know, Travis, you've been selling on there for longer than us. How's Amazon treated you as far as a print-on-demand platform to sell? Yeah,
I really do think that, Amazon is the king, for a reason. It's definitely got the most eyeballs, like we've alluded to. There are some caveats that you have to be aware of. In order for you to create a product listing on Amazon, you have to have a professional selling account, which is it's $39.99, $40 a month. Yep. And so that's one thing to consider. But I mean, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, when you're in a business, you're going to have expenses, and that's just part of it. But once you talked about the GTIN exemption, which basically means that, and we'll probably talk about this in future podcasts, but GTIN is like the global trade. I don't even know what it stands for, but it's a number. The global trade identification number, I think, is probably what it is. And so a global trade identification number is a UPC or an EAN. Yeah. And to get a GTIN exemption means that you don't have to have a UPC to list on Amazon. Right. Walmart, it's a lot harder to get a GTIN exemption. They like their UPCs for whatever reason. Yes. But Amazon, you can get this thing. And so it allows you, because I mean, let's be honest, I'm not going to go and buy a bunch of UPCs to list thousands of print-on-demand products, because if you're selling a T-shirt, every single color and every single size is technically is a UPC. Yep. So it's a lot better if you can have like this GTIN exemption, because it allows you the freedom to list your products that you are creating without that added burden. Right. Trying to think of what are some other things that about Amazon.com that make it so unique, but also so lucrative, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's unique, and it kind of what we touched on with Merch by Amazon is because of the sheer number of eyes that are on the platform. And if you know how to put the right keywords and how to really set up the back end to where you hit, when people search the most sought after phrases, if you can figure out how to I guess they used to call it keyword stuff, is another thing that's like now illegal in Amazon's world, keyword stuffing. But they don't charge a listing fee, but they do take, is it 15%?
15% of the categories that I sell in,
Yeah. So it's 15%. So you kind of adjust your prices accordingly if you want to recoup that 15%. But it is the granddaddy of them all, man. I think it's a good place to start. Again, it's $40 a month, so you have to know that you need to sell and move $40 worth of product to kind of justify and to pay that for
profit itself. Even not just $40 worth of product.
Yeah, $40 of profit. Right. So you have to move that much for it to pay for itself, and then it definitely helps motivate you to get the ball rolling, so that you're not having to eat that $40 every month. But it's a good place to start. You'll learn a lot quickly. I know we did. So I think it's a good place as any to start. But it's very competitive. There's lots of stuff out there. You're competing for a lot of attention. Right. And we can maybe in another episode get more into pay-per-click and advertising and how you can really set yourself apart. But it's definitely a land of opportunity if you can position yourself correctly in the midst of all of these other sellers. Or offer something different, or yes. I mean, you've had, not print on demand, but you've had some success on some of your private label stuff, like your the blanket you were selling for a while,
right?
So
it definitely, if you can set, like you say, if you can set yourself apart, it's definitely lucrative. I think, like, if I were to advise, I guess, somebody who was just getting started in print on demand and said, and they said, well, what should my process be? Where should I start? I think I would probably encourage someone to start out on Etsy. Even though there's a 20-cent listing, per listing fee, 20 cents, what is 20 cents? I think it's a little easier to list. There's a little, like we were talking about, their content policies are a little looser. And it's just a little easier to learn. And, you also don't have that $40 a month fee hanging over your head.
Right.
I think Amazon, though, should be anybody who wants to sell print on demand on, other people's online sales channel. I think Amazon should be your target.
Yeah.
That should be part of your long-term goal. Yeah. If you get started on, Etsy or maybe Merch by Amazon or Teespring or Redbubble or some of these other places, your target should be to eventually be on Amazon.com.
Right.
And you should try to target that to where the lion's share of your listings are available and for sale in November and December.
Yep.
All of these channels are going to increase dramatically during November and December because of the Christmas season and the gift giving season. But I'll tell you what, Amazon is ridiculously busy. Yep. And the other thing is that you can raise your prices because so many people are on this channel. Last year I raised my prices probably 20% to 25% across the board on all my print on demand products. And I could not keep stuff in stock. I sent in a lot of things. We'll talk about Amazon and FBA versus merchant fulfilled and all of those things. But I sent in all kinds of product to FBA. It was gone in a heartbeat. And then I was fulfilling all that stuff. You do the same thing. Every Christmas we think, how's it going to be this year? And oh my gosh, it's nuts.
Even crazier than the year before. And it's
right.
In the middle of it, you don't think that that's possible, and then somehow, when 12 months pass, you're like, it's a frantic pace. So yeah, Amazon during Q4, that's definitely the sweet spot. That's where you want to have everything ready and available because you will reap the rewards.
You'll do 50% of your entire year's volume in Q4.
Yep,
that's the average.
Yeah,
some people do more, some people do a little less, but you will do half of your entire year's revenue in really, I say Q4, and that's 90 days, but really it really starts ramping up in November, mid-November into December.
Yep.
So, I just think, start on Etsy, maybe start on Merch by Amazon, start on Redbubble, test some products, see what designs people like, but your ultimate goal should be to get onto Amazon.com. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing to aspire to, and where you want to land is definitely Amazon. I think you can learn a lot of good skills. Like we said on Etsy, it's very much presenting a brand as a whole, getting good photographs, and learning how to list correctly. And a lot of those skills that you'll learn will parlay and lend themselves to Amazon. It'll be a little bit of a different system, but you'll at least be comfortable with keywords and how to title and images, and
you'll know what a variation is. That type of stuff. There's a lot of things that you'll learn through the process.
Yep.
But I also, just in kind of wrapping this whole thing up, I want to reiterate what we kind of said off the top, but I don't know that we really focused on it. This is just one part of selling print on demand. This is one avenue that you can go. It's something that both of us have focused on a lot because our paths brought us here. Mm-hmm. I think, Josiah, you've had a lot of experience in some other ways to sell print on demand. Yeah. And, at the risk of, giving away the farm, I think we'll just tease that, in upcoming episodes, we're going to be talking about other ways to sell print on demand products. It's not just, this podcast isn't just about, well, how many listings can you get on Amazon?
Yeah, totally.
That's just one way to go about it.
Yeah, these platforms have a pretty low barrier of entry. This is a good place to get started and get your feet wet and get experience, and then you can transition to, more like when we talk about what we're doing, what For Apparel is doing, and all those different ways you can do print on demand. This is a good way to get started. This is why we are able to do what we're doing, is because we learned what we did from eBay or from Etsy, from Walmart, from Amazon, allowed us to transition and pivot to what we're doing now in addition to. So I think we will definitely get into those in a later episode, but those are just quick highlights of the platforms available for e-commerce print on demand. If you guys have any questions,
I was just going to say that's not exhaustive. Obviously, there's way more channels than this. These are just the ones that we're familiar with and that we have experience to. Yeah, exactly.
So if you guys have any other questions or you want us, if you know of another channel that you think people need to know about, let us know. You can find the podcast at printondemandcast.com, and you can send us emails at info@printondemandcast.com. Let us make us aware of what you know that we might not know, and we would be happy to highlight that. Maybe that'll be a point of interest on an episode if you guys let us know of something that we might have missed, but we'd be happy to go back and highlight it. So again, thanks guys for listening to episode 2. Again, I'll tell you where you can get the podcast, printondemandcast.com, and reach out to Travis and myself with any questions that you might have. Info@printondemandcast, easy for me to say, .com. And then, of course, if you like what you're hearing, if we're helping you, if you're learning some stuff, if this is helping you, rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review for our cool segue and outros and sound effects and stuff that we put in. We'll take it. But before we wrap it up, Travis, anything else? Anything last words that you want to say to the people listening?
Nope. I mean, I'll just say ideas are a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about taking action. So go do something. Go create a listing. Go create a design. Go put something out there for somebody to buy.
Yep.
I think that's going to be that's always going to be our final nugget of wisdom, I guess, don't just have an idea about it. Go do something about it.
I agree wholeheartedly with what he said. So for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you next time on Print on Demand Cast.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next week.